If you want to see amazing and exciting duels, informative and entertaining top 10 lists, and everything else that's just great about the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, you gotta watch the Capital G show. Shout outs to my homeboy Dante. Hey. What's up YouTube, Capital G here. So now that national season has been brought to a close and our last two major WCQs have pretty much wrapped up, I have to ask the question, was national season a failure for Nekroz? Now, I know that some people are immediately going to look at the numbers and they're going to think on a global scale, Cap, Nekroz won so many nationals in different countries from, you know, like Ireland and Australia and Tahiti and all these other different countries. And I totally get that and I understand, but if you look at this deck, especially in the TCG, I think that just about every competitive player, myself included, would unilaterally agree that this is the best deck in the formats. Like currently, it was the best deck last format too, but that's beyond the point. And I mean, you could even make a very strong argument that by the numbers, it's a tier 0 deck. I mean, this is the most powerful deck. I think that it is easily the most consistent deck. But when you look at the biggest events, I think that Nekroz ended up coming up short. I mean, I've always thought that there were 3 very huge events that it was very important to win if a deck really wanted to showcase that it was the best. And that is obviously the European WCQ, the Japanese WCQ, and the North American WCQ. And maybe if you want to throw in the South American WCQ, I don't think it's as big as the other 3, but that's perfectly fine as well. But if you just look at those first 3 events, Nekroz won exactly 0 of them. In fact, I mean, it's not as surprising in the OCG that Nekroz didn't win that event. Nekroz is still a very strong contender to win any tournament that it enters, but if you ask most players in the OCG or most players who even, you know about it, like Nekroz isn't the best deck over there. You know, Heroes might be in consideration, but generally it's going to be like some variation of Clown Blade or Empowered Warriors or something like that. They have a lot of cards that we don't have, and they've obviously had a lot of hits to Nekroz that we haven't had as well. But in the TCG, Nekroz are pretty much at full power. They only lost 1 copy of Brionic and a couple of copies of Preparation of Rites, but for the most part, the deck is still well above everything else, and it's expected to win these events, especially in the TCG and the North American Nationals, when out of 64 top decks, you end up taking, I think, 33 spots or 35 spots, something like that. Like, you're expected to win the tournament. A lot of people would say that going into these events that it's Nekroz or the field, and yet in the North American Nationals, they didn't even make the finals. And then you also have to consider at the European World Championship qualifiers, not only did Nekroz get throttled in the finals match, I mean, it was an absolute massacre how bad the guy actually got beaten. But if you just look at the top 8 decks there, Nekroz had a worse showing than Burning Abyss and Shadows. Like, Shadows are really? I mean, these are decks that Nekroz are supposed to be able to dominate because they have been the most consistent deck. They have been the most played deck over the past couple of months, and I don't think that the deck was, like, it just didn't have a showing for a deck of its caliber. So I feel like it's a very fair question to ask, despite the fact that it won multiple events, despite the fact that it got, you know, it represented more of the top 64 at these events. It just couldn't seem to, you know, seal the deal. So I'm asking for not only an answer to, do you think that the national season overall was a failure for Nekroz? What would you give Nekroz as a grade for their national season? You know, their representation. How do you think that it went, or what are your opinions on it? Because, yeah, I think that it was definitely a major letdown. And the thing is, I don't think that this deck has a very good chance of winning Worlds. That's why I'm making this video now, because I think that Heroes are probably going to be a better deck at Worlds, if they're allowed to use Stratos anyway. If they use the OCG list where Stratos is limited, then yeah, Heroes should be a better deck. I feel like Tellarknights will emphatically be a better deck because they have absolutely no hits at all. Spirit Beast can be a better deck. So there's a lot of decks that are in contention that can be far better than Nekroz at this event, and I think that Nekroz had a very good chance of becoming like one of the best decks ever in, you know, the North American Nationals. They just didn't do it, and Euros, they didn't do it, and they won South American Nationals, but I don't think 1 out of 4 is good enough to really, you know, hold your chest out and say, yeah, man, we did it, Reddit. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching as always. Subscribing makes life happy.